What is happening, my people? You're listening to the Introverted Nerd Watches. I am your host, Reese, and I am back with a new show, y'all. This episode, I watched season 2, episode 1 of The Gifted, eMergence. Oh, I'm so excited about this. This is, okay. I friggin' loved The Gifted last season. It wasn't last. Was it last year that it was on? I can't remember. But I loved the first season of The Gifted, and I wanted to podcast about it last season, but other things got in the way, and I couldn't. I couldn't do it. I could have done like something else about after the season was over, but whatever. Schedule didn't work out, but now everything is clear. I can talk about The Gifted all I want. I can fangirl out about my ships and nobody can stop me. So welcome, you guys. I hope you're enjoying the show as much as I am, because this first episode of this new season was so damn good. It was just, I freaking loved it. So spoilers right off the top. I am going to fangirl all over this one. But before I do that, let me just remind you that you should subscribe to the podcast if you want this Gifted episode every week and you want to hear my other episodes where I cover Saved by the Bell and Fear the Walking Dead and Black Lightning, which is coming up very soon. So yay about that. So subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcast. And if you want to help me out just a tiny little bit, leave me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. I believe you can also review the show on Twitter and Google Play and other places. So do me that tiny little favor, 5 stars, and recommend the show to your friends. Recommend the show to everybody, because while I am an introvert, I do want everybody to listen to what I say, because I want to take over the world. It's what I call my Pinky in the Brain plan for the future. So everybody get on board with that, and let's get into The Gifted. So eMergence. It's so good. Okay, so we start out, I don't know how long it is, but it's Lorna is at the end of her pregnancy. So I don't know how pregnant she was at the end of last season, but we're going to say it's at least, probably 6-7 months since the end of last season. And Lorna and Andy are with the Cuckoos, and Riva, what's her last name? I forget her. Well, whatever. Riva is badass, so she doesn't need a last name. Her name is Riva, and you just remember that. The other Struckers, Caitlin, Reed, Lauren, are with Thunderbird and Blink and Eclipse. They're all in the DC area now, and they have been searching for Lorna and Andy. They've just been basically roaming the country searching for Andy. They are off the grid because the Sentinel Services believes that they all died at the end of last season, so they can all fly under the radar now. So what they've been doing is helping other mutant communities, escape from Sentinel Services, giving them new identities, when raids come up. And Sentinel Services is like, they're like on 11, we see a raid by Sentinel Service at a mutant apartment complex. I don't even know that it was like exclusively a mutant apartment complex, but there were a lot of mutants there. Sentinel Service went in that bitch like I can't even. It's so like crazy. It was like if you remember those like early 90s, late 80s raids and like Compton and shit like that on the news, that is what this looked like. It was wild. And they were straight up killing people. I thought that they were just, at first I thought that they were just they were like, they were shooting people with something to like just put them down to subdue them. But no, they came in, they like kicked in the door, shooting people first. It was crazy as shit. It was like really scary, the way Sentinel Service is behaving. So that's where we're at now. It's no joke. They're not coming in to talk to anybody. They're coming in shooting first and asking questions later. So basically they round up this apartment complex, and we find out that this is has been going on for a while now. Lauren and Clarice talk, and they say that this has been the third raid this month. So things have been picking up with Sentinel Services, and it's wild and scary. So nobody's safe anymore, and it must be even worse in Washington DC area than it was in where were they at, Atlanta in the first season. It must be even worse. I mean, you can imagine in Washington DC, like the amount of security around the DC metro area would be even tighter than it would in Atlanta. So, and this is where they have tracked, or where they hope they've tracked Andy and Lorna with the rest of the Hellfire Club. Well, I mean, I guess they're not really looking for the Hellfire Club. They're just looking for Andy and Lorna to try to get them back. But it's going to be rough, because one of the first things we see is Reva and the Cuckoos having a meeting with the inner circle of the Hellfire Club. So there's the Hellfire Club, and then there's the inner circle of these people that sort of run shit. And they're having a meeting about Reva sort of doing things behind everyone else's back. And so it starts off as like a civil meeting you would almost think it was like a board meeting or something like that for some company. And, Reva is trying to explain to them like, yo, I did what I had to do. We need Polaris, because it's this started as something to get Lorna to join them, to help them do what they're trying to do. And she's explaining it, but there's a bunch of men around the table, and one man in particular, William, who is just being really condescending. And on the one hand, I get it. This woman comes in, she's making, sort of sweeping decisions without consulting anyone else. Boom, I get it. But I was kind of on her side, because I'm like, fuck all these men, because the men are they're not listening to what she's saying. And it almost feels like at a certain point we would have got one of these men patting Reva on the head and saying, okay, girl, sit down, let the men do the talking here. Like, they weren't taking her as seriously as I think they should have taken her. And yeah, she wasn't having it. So the Cuckoos are also there at the meeting, sitting at the table. And Reva just when they say, no, fuck this, Reva, we're not having this. They basically Reva says, yeah, okay, if that's what you want to do. And she has, her power is sort of this high pitch, like noise, like on, when you put on closed captioning, it says a high pitched note like she's singing or something. But it controls people's minds, and it basically fucks them up and they can't do anything. And that's what she does. She opens up her mouth. She puts out this high pitched note, and it just fucks everybody up. And then the cuckoos get up and they just shoot everybody. They pull out guns and they shoot everybody around the table. And it's like, whoa, like, you to start an episode like that is like, okay, like, what are we in for this season? Because Reva is badass, and Reva and the cuckoos together is like, oh, they are going to fuck so much shit up. I cannot wait for the rest of the season to see what they do, because my God, like, Reva, she comes in there, she's wearing her white suit with her black lipstick and her beautiful hair. And she is not to be fucked with. So William should have came with a little bit more respect, is what he should have done. But, you know, he didn't learn. And the last thing you see before, this is all happening in the cold open. So the last thing you see before you go to break is Reva comes to William last. The cuckoos are all standing around him with guns drawn on him. She says sorry, and one of the cuckoos shoots that dude in the head, and it is over for the rest of the inner circle. And I want to know what Reva's plan was, if they agreed with her, because the cuckoos were placed like strategically around the table, so that, you know, you usually expect them to all three to be sitting together. And I don't know why none of them were suspicious when they see the cuckoos like placed, you know, away from each other around the table. And it's like, okay, I would have been super suspicious at that point, but none of them were, because I guess they just sort of saw these women and they were like, they're not about that life. They're not going to do anything. They were wrong. And so, like, what was her plan? Was she just going to be like, okay, if they agree with me, then it's fine. We can all continue this way. But I kind of think she was going to kill them anyway, because she wants to run this shit. She doesn't want to. I feel like the rest of the inner circle would have stood in the way of the other things that she wanted to do next. So I guess best to take them out now. I'm such a villain because I started off this episode like, oh shit, yay. Like, Reva's my new favorite. I fucking love her. The cuckoos I'm in love with. So I have a villainous heart. You know, I love Kylo Ren. Oh, like, I do. I straight up have a villainous heart. I'm so terrible. Anyway, the villains are always cooler. So through all this, like, after all that, we see that Caitlin and Marco are both desperate to find Andy and Lorna. You know, I called him Marcos because of, you know, Lorna and the baby. Caitlin is, you know, she's like exhausting herself looking for Andy. She has, they have Lauren out looking for Andy. Like, she's going around, I guess, sort of posing as a homeless teen and staying in shelters to try to, you know, get information from people that might be staying there. So, you know, there's a whole thing going on. Like, Caitlin is not, yeah, she wants her baby back. And, but the weird thing is that Reed is less enthusiastic about finding Andy. Reed has some shit going on in this episode. He's like having, like, migraines or something. He's having like ringing in his ears. He's taking pills. You know, we don't know what kind of pills he's taking. I'm guessing they're pain pills. So he's got some shit going on, but he doesn't really seem as pressed to find Andy as Caitlin is. And Caitlin and Marco sort of shared worry for their loved ones takes them to, they go to a hacker named Wired, who he's a mutant as well. His power is, some sort of control over electricity or computers or something like that. I don't know. It looked cool. Okay. Before I get into anything else, I want to just say I love the way they show how the mutants use their powers. In the X-Men movies, you don't get, you get a lot of people putting their hands up or putting their hands to their head, hello Professor X, to show that they're using their powers. But I love the way in this show you get sort of a visual representation of what people's powers look like, especially when there's something that it's not... there's nothing physical coming out of them. So it's not like with Eclipse, you can see the light coming out of his hands, from his body and everything. So you can see that. So there doesn't need to be, there's a visual representation already. He has something physical that comes, from his body. But with Thunderbird, you don't see, there's nothing physically coming from him. There's no physical, sort of visual form to his powers. So the way they show it, and probably Polaris is the best example of it, because when she starts using her powers, you see the green, visualization from her hands and everything. So I like that. It's really cool. And it's so, it's a lot better. They should put that into the movies. Not retroactively, but that next X-Men movie coming out, what is it, The Dark Phoenix? That hot garbage. Yeah, whatever. Let's not talk about the X-Men movies because my God. So what was I saying? They went to Wired. Marcos and Caitlin go to Wired. He's a hacker, and they're asking for information about the Hellfire Club, and Caitlin is the one that called Marcos in the middle of the night. Marcos brought up the idea of going to this hacker earlier in the episode to the rest of the group. And they're all like, yo, he's a criminal. We're not getting involved with him. We should stay away from him, basically. And so Caitlin calls him, and Marcos and Caitlin sort of go off by themselves to see Wired. And Caitlin is not supposed to be there. Marcos had already had a deal worked out with him. He already paid him money. So Caitlin being there sort of upsets everything. And Wired is sort of this sarcastic, computer guy. And, Marcos goes in telling her hey, let me do all the talking. Because Caitlin is telling him yo, I've been training and everything. I can handle myself. And he's like, yeah, but no, just, stand there. Let me do the talking. You be quiet. And Wired is just, he's trying to give them the information, but Wired straight up tells them yo, this Hellfire Club, you don't want to fuck with them. Is the basic thing that he tells them. You don't want to mess with them. They got a ton of money. People that try to mess with them, they disappear. I'm not trying to be about that. I'm not about that life. You didn't pay me enough to fuck with these people. You didn't give me enough information to do what you were asking me to do. I'm not even into this. And he gets up, and it's basically everybody's, he sort of draws his gun, has his boys draw their guns. And he's like, okay, I want more money, or, I need you to get out of here because I'm not even messing with these people. And Caitlin is just not having it. The lesson, I guess, is do not fuck with anybody's mom, because Caitlin is Caitlyn, everybody has their guns drawn. Marcos has his hands up like he's about to use his powers. And then Caitlyn attacks Wired. She wrestles the gun away from him. She gets grazed by a bullet in her side. And she subdues Wired. And she's like, okay, this is what we going to do right now. Because I'm about at the end of my rope. I'm a white woman. Don't mess with me. My son is missing. She's like, I'm not trying to hear this bullshit. I'm going to count to 3 and I'm going to shoot you in the back of the head if you don't tell me what I want to know. And Wired is like, okay. And he tells them what they want to know, but it's the only thing he can tell them is about all the money that the Hellfire Club has. They have, millions of dollars, probably hundreds of millions of dollars in all of these bank accounts all around the world. And it's basically a bunch of financial information that he can give them. Because as he tells Marco, when Marco asks about, like, where are they located? He's like, yeah, let me look that up because a super secret organization puts their address on their fake bank accounts so that everybody can find them. And it's like really, Marco, you think he can find some information about where they're staying? So Wired is like, okay, I'm not even trying to mess with you guys anymore. I got to do some drugs. So he gave them all the information on like a flash drive and told them, get the fuck out. I don't know you. You don't know me. Just get out of here. Take your crazy white lady and go. So, yeah, that's what they do. And, so, I want to know, like, what is Marcos and Caitlyn? I don't know what they plan to do with this information. I don't know what they plan to do next. Caitlyn, for as badass she was in this moment, she is not prepared to fight Reva, the Cuckoos, anybody else, any mutant. So I understand she wants to find her son, but it doesn't even matter because Lauren is going to put her in her place in a little while. So, let's go over to Lorna and Andy. So they're with the inner circle, the Cuckoos. The bodies are all cleaned up from the inner circle meeting, and they're trying to find a place for Lorna to have her baby, where it's going to be safe because, okay, so she has, she can't control her powers when she starts having like contractions or when the baby kicks or something like that. Like, the baby kicks, and she bends over like in pain, but it causes this like freak out of her powers and she starts moving cars, like the metal shit all around. The Cuckoos and Reva are looking around like, oh shit, like what the fuck are we going to do with this pregnancy? Like, how is she going to give birth? And, and Lorna stands up like, oh, the baby kicked. Like, it was a really funny moment, but it's like, okay, when the contractions start, shit gets real, like really real. So what they're doing is they go to an old munitions building. So it's basically just a big concrete building. And inside the building, they're building another like room, another structure so that Lorna can have her baby inside of that. So, yeah, shit is dangerous. And, so Reva is, I don't think Lorna trusts Reva all the way. Like she wants what Reva wants, this goal of freeing mutants, of, freeing the mutant kind and all that, which is, a worthy cause. And, I'm all for it. But, Reva wants to kill a bunch of people to do that. And Lorna kind of doesn't have a problem with that either, which, I get it. But so she doesn't trust Reva all the way because she's like, yo, Reva, I heard about all the shit you've been doing, and I heard you took out the rest of the inner circle. I've been hearing rumors about you. And because Reva starts off their conversation like being really kind and polite and very I want to say almost maternal. It felt like she was being, or just very friendly to Lorna, and it doesn't come naturally to her. So Lorna basically put her cards on the table, and it's like, yeah, but I know about you, and I've been hearing things about you. And Reva turns, she's really good because she's not super mean or very menacing, I would say, but she's authoritative. And you sort of see that she's in control of this, and she wants Lorna there, but she's not going to put up with a whole lot of the bullshit. So, and Lorna is sort of dependent on her because she needs, she can't, I guess she could go back to Marcos and the rest of the group, but maybe not. Things ended the last season on not very good terms. So, who the hell knows? But Lorna and Andy have sort of been depending on each other. And Lorna tells Andy, she talks to him privately, and she tells him like, yo, if this pregnancy doesn't go well, if I have problems, I need you to take care of the baby, because Reva is going to help me. Like if it comes down to a choice, Reva is always going to choose Lorna. But she tells Andy, I need you to protect the baby no matter what. Like, you're a Von Strucker. Like you come from Von Strucker stock. I need you to do whatever you need to do to save this baby. Like, you need to kill these bitches. You need to do whatever you need to do to save this baby. So, and, Andy agrees, and he sort of becomes, they sort of have like a cute thing going on. Lorna is kind of standing in for Lauren, his sister, and that he's really protective of her. So you get to see that Andy is not, he's a petulant child. He's a teenager, but he's not all bad. He's not just, a terrible, like, villainous person. There's some levels to him. So, if you hated Andy at the end of last season, I didn't hate Andy, but I was like, okay, teenage boy, come on. But yeah, but his parents were so not great either. So whatever. Andy comes by his attitude. You get why he is the way that he is what I'll say. So, as far as Lauren is concerned, like the Strucker family unit things are tense between them. Like I said, Lauren has been at the shelters because of trying to find Andy, trying to get more information on Andy. And Caitlin is really into this, and you get the feeling that Caitlin is kind of putting pressure on Lauren to continue going to the shelters. Reed tells her, like, hey, why don't we get you a regular job, so that you can start making friends and meeting people your own age. And Caitlin kind of has a freak out about that. She's like, no, you can't stop doing this. We need to find your brother. So everything is off with the Struckers because of Andy. And Reed and Lauren are sort of on one side, Caitlin is on the other, and things sort of come to a head closer to the end of the episode. But before that, okay, here's what happens. Lauren has a nightmare or a dream about Andy. She's walking down the street. She goes into a building and up onto a roof, and she sees Andy standing there, and they have a moment where, she hugs Andy, and she's talking to him, and it starts off like nice, but then he grabs her hand and he's trying to get her to use her power. So he's basically attacking her. Like, I don't know exactly what he's doing, but he's grabbing her hand. You see, the light emanating from where they're touching, from where their hands are touching, and she wakes up screaming. And Caitlin is like, she's interrogating her. She's like, what did you see? What was happening with him? And Lauren has to calm the situation, and she kind of lies to her and tells her that she doesn't really remember. She tells her that it could have all been a dream. It doesn't really mean anything, that she saw Andy in this dream. And she lies and tells her that, it's all kind of fuzzy and she can't really remember anything. And so that sort of ends it. But, and this is another situation where Reed is trying to get Caitlin to settle down. Like, you can't treat our daughter like this, and your effort to find our son, you give Lauren a break, basically. And so this all, tension sort of culminates with them in this episode with, after Lorna gets grazed in the side and she's trying to treat herself, Reed is talking to her like, yo, what do you think you're doing? Like, you go to this hacker, you put yourself in danger, you're putting all of us in danger, all of this to find Andy, and Andy doesn't really want to be found by us. And Caitlin her basic argument is like, he is 15 years old. He was taken away from us. He's been kidnapped. And this is when Lauren has to come to her and say, no, Mom. Lauren just has to tell her some truths. Like, Andy did not get kidnapped. You've been walking around here, searching for him like he's been kidnapped. And that's not the case. Andy left because he wanted to leave. He's not too young to fight. He's 15. Yes, he's young. Yes, he's, a child. But this is what he chose to do. And it doesn't help any of us with you pretending that something different happened. We all saw Andy made his decision. He doesn't want to be with us. And she specifically says he left us. And Caitlin, is sort of left to deal with that, because I guess it's the first time, I guess, she's been forced to deal with the fact that her baby is not a baby, and he's old enough to make these kind of decisions, and he did, and this is what he chose. And we can continue, I guess they can continue looking for him, but it's I don't even know what you do with him at this point. The thing that he's seen is that being a mutant, having his powers, makes him a target. And nobody has been, they haven't, Sentinel Services is not out there to try to, foster a good relationship between humans and, mutant kind. So everything that he's seen has showed him that he has to fight. So, I mean, you sort of get where he's coming from. And so that's kind of it with the shock. One thing I am curious about is, like we know that Lauren lied to Caitlin about, forgetting the dream and all that. But we know that their powers, Lauren and Andy's powers, are connected, and they are sort of stronger together. So I want to know how real her dream was, because she sees Andy as he is right now. Like she sees him, with his hair dyed blonde, and in his, the leather jacket and, and the clothes that he's wearing. So she sees him. I just want to know how deep that connection goes. I want to know if Andy felt it as well, because if she can see him, he has to be able to see her as well, right? Yeah, I want to know. I can't wait to see how that, plays into everything, because they definitely do have a connection, between their powers. So, the last Strucker we'll get to is Reed, because Reed has got problems. He's having headaches. Like I said, he's taking pain pills. And then the final thing that happens with him is that he starts getting something starts happening with his hand. It almost looks like his blood catches fire inside his arm, and it starts rolling down his hand. It was something weird happened. And I want to know, I was thinking, is he getting powers or something? What is happening with him? And it eventually stops. It starts up when he gets a phone call telling him that, Caitlin is hurt. And that's when, he has the second incident where he's having ringing in his ears, and it almost looks like he's having a stroke. But then, the red, fire blood starts rolling down his arm and into his hand and everything. But it eventually stops after a few seconds. But I was like, is he getting powers? This is a very late age for, mutant powers to start manifesting. But is that what's happening? Is Reed, having some weird manifestation of his powers? Has it been a case where his powers have been made to be tamped down or something like that all of his life? Was he drugged or something as a child? And that made his powers not, manifest, during puberty like everybody else's. And now he's a 40-something year old man about to get powers for the first time. I get so many questions about it. It's so what the hell is happening with him? And he tries to tell Caitlin about it, but they get interrupted by Marcos, because Marcos starts noticing the power surges around the city. And he and Caitlin figure out that this means that Lorna is in labor. And so they get Thunderbird and everybody else, and they try to track it. But eventually it just all sort of, the power surge, takes out all the power, and they lose track of them, of where they are. And Marcos ends the episode thinking that Lorna, and I guess, and the baby might have died because all the power goes out. And so, he's on the ground a mess. He doesn't know what to do. But his tears are for naught, because Lorna is fine. When we see in all these power surges, we're also seeing her. She's in labor. And they have her in the special built-in room. Everything is going crazy, large construction equipment is moving around because, she can't control her powers in this state. And what's happening is we see throughout the episode that she kind of misses Marcos, or not kind of, she does miss him. She loves him. And she loves him still. And she she's scared. Through the episode, you can tell that she's scared for herself and the baby. And what's happening is she's in labor, but she's not dilating. So we find out from the doctor that there's some sort of mental block that she has, and the Cuckoos take care of it. They show her a future with her daughter. They're in Washington, D.C. at the White House. And I guess, I think Reva or some mutant is being elected. They have mutant flags that are, next to the American flag. So they show her this future that, she could have. And she tells Reva, this is what she wants. And then she finally gives birth. And that's when, all the power around the city goes out. And the baby's name is Dawn. So, cute baby Dawn, I guess. What are they going to do with this baby? Like, how is Lorna... they better hope that this baby grows super fast, like mutant fast or something like that, that there's some sort of special power that makes this baby grow, because this baby can only be a liability, right? And there's no way she's not a mutant. So I don't know. This baby there's going to be a whole lot of drama going on with this baby. So I can't wait to see that. And finally, you guys, I saved the best for last, because I am going to fangirl, ship my ship. So I am a huge, huge, huge Thunder Blink fan. For all of you novices out there, I really enjoy Clarice and John Thunderbird. So I was so happy to see in this episode that they're in a relationship. However, 6 to 8 months, however long they've been together, running from, Sentinel services or hiding from Sentinel services. They're now in this relationship where they're living together and they're really cute. It's so... we only got a short moment where they kiss, and Lorna actually says to John, are you trying to get me in the mood? And I'm like, get her in the mood, John. Go have sex. I'm such a horn dog because I'm like, yeah, get her in the mood. Don't leave. And but they leave it sort of on the cute moment where he's doing the dishes and Thunder Blink. I was so excited. They kissed at the end of last season. Yeah, so that was a moment, and I was wondering what they're going to do with that relationship. Are they going to start off in a relationship? But this is better than I could even hope. If you're not into the shipper thing, I get it, but whatever. I am. I love me some Thunder Blink. I need somebody to write some good Thunder Blink fan fiction. I like Eclipse and Polaris too, but Thunder Blink is my thing. And it's so cool, another thing, to have an interracial couple that doesn't include a white person. I mean, I know to most people this probably wouldn't be even a big deal, but to me it's usually when people talk about interracial couples, it's usually a black person and a white person, or just any, non-white person and a white person. But to have two people who are not white, Clarice, who is Asian American, and John, who I believe is Native American. I think he's not white, so that's my point, is that, an interracial couple not including a white person is always a good thing in my book, because interracial couples are made up more than, black person with a white person. So, yeah, so they're cute and I love them. they have a guest, Christina. Christina is a girl that survived the raid. She got hurt. Her parents were murdered, and she's looking for her little sister. And John and Clarice are trying to help her find her little sister, Jasmine. She has some sort of like telekinesis power or something. She can move things with her mind or something like that. But she must be important, right? She's not just there to be there. There has to be some point to having Christina there and to continue this search for Jasmine, because they could have sent Christina with, we hear sort of in the background that they found places for the other mutants that they helped to go. They were able to help like 10 mutants, survive the raid by the Sentinel services. So Christina must have like a bigger point. And I'm wondering if they're going to try to if they're going to have like Reva and the Cuckoos try to recruit her or something like that, because she seems like a pretty powerful mutant as well. And she's sort of young and probably a little easier to be manipulated. So I'm wondering, how important she is. Like, who exactly is she? And why is it important that, she be staying with not Marcos, but with John and Clarice. And, they're continuing to look for her younger sister. So I'm so excited. This was so much fun talking about this first episode. Did I get to everything? Yeah, I think I got to all of the big stuff. Reed, he's got shit going on. The Cuckoos and Reva, I love them bitches. And Baby Dawn. Yeah, so that is the end of the episode, you guys. I can't wait until next week. They at the end of this episode, they didn't show scenes from next week's episode. They showed scenes from from this season of The Gifted. It all looks really good. I'm really excited to see the rest of it. I don't know what the next episode is called because I didn't check before this, but I'm excited. So if you are as in love with this as I was, you can send me some feedback. Send it to TheIntrovertedNerd@gmail.com. You can follow me on the socials because I live tweet this show and a bunch of other shows like Fear the Walking Dead, Black Lightning, The Flash. I live tweet a bunch of stuff. So follow me on Twitter at NerdTrovertPod. You can follow me personally on Twitter at the Ms. Introvert. That's THEMS Introvert. If you want to live tweet with me, use the hashtag NerdyWatch so we can, chat with each other and I can see all of your tweets. And that's it, you guys. Just subscribe to the podcast and have a good weekend. Until next week. Later.